Rejection. We have all felt it. But what if you weren't chosen to be the final apostle? Would you feel rejected by God himself? Today we will see how one disciple handled rejection, and it's a lesson for all of us. Join us today. All right, good morning. Welcome to our Acts in 10-ish series. Let's tell you where we are in the book of Acts. Right now, Jesus has died on the cross, rose from the grave. 40 days he's been on earth. He ascended into heaven. Here's a really cool little timeline chart here. You can see it there at Passover. Then there's this death, burial, and resurrection. And then there's like 40 days. And then Jesus ascends, and then you've got 10 days until the day of Pentecost when the Holy Spirit will show up, empower people to be bold to go out and share the gospel. And so this is what they're waiting for at this time. Now, last week we saw that they needed to pick a new disciple. We asked why, and there was 12, and then Judas, betrayed Jesus. Now there's 11. But I think there was a few reasons, but one of them was something that probably stuck with them in Matthew 19:28. Jesus replied, "I assure you that when the world is made new and the Son of Man sits upon his glorious throne, you who have been my followers," he's talking to the disciples, "will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." So they knew that the number of apostles were supposed to be 12. And the apostles were very, very important in the early church. They're the ones who gave pretty much the foundation to the early church. But in order to be an apostle, you had to have some kind of a resume, let's say. You had to be one of those that followed Jesus since the beginning when Jesus was on the earth. You had to be an eyewitness to the resurrection, and you needed to be an eyewitness to, the 40 days on earth, basically, before he ascended. Now, the reasons why that would be is that the apostles would be speaking with authority. If they said, Jesus said, they could actually say that because they were there. They heard him say it. If they said, well, Jesus rose from the dead, they'll be like, well, how'd you know that? Well, I was there. I saw it. Well, Jesus told us this after he rose from the dead. You'd be like, well, how would you know that? I was there. So see, these guys had firsthand knowledge about Jesus. They were the ones that were in his inner circle. Now, the second reason why they kind of needed to, this would have had to have been a part of their resume, is that God knew that they would be persecuted, highly, highly persecuted. And unless these guys actually saw Jesus before, when he died, how he rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, they might not take this message very serious. They may have run, they may have given in to persecution, they may have changed their story, but because they were eyewitnesses, they could be apostles. So I want to go back to a verse that we talked about last week, but I want to go a different way with it. Let's pick it up here in Acts 1:23. This is when they were trying to make, they needed to find a new apostle to fill that 12th position. Acts 1:23, and they accordingly proposed or nominated 2 men, Joseph called Barsabbas, whose surname was Justus, and Matthias. Then they prayed, Lord, you know everyone's heart. Show us which of these 2 you have chosen to take over the apostolic ministry, which Judas left to go where he belongs. Then they cast lots, and the lot fell to Matthias, so he was added to the 11 apostles. Now, what I want to do is talk about rejection, because they cast lots for the 12th disciple. They knew God would be the one making that decision. Matthias got the job. Barsabbas didn't. And the question is, how would you feel if you were Barsabbas? I'm not good enough. I didn't have what it takes. God likes him more than me. See, feelings of rejection sets in to most of us at different points in our life. Some of you feel rejected because maybe your father left you when you were 4 years old. Maybe you didn't get that promotion someone else did, you feel rejected. Maybe your boyfriend found someone that he liked better, rejection. Maybe your husband leaves you for a younger woman, rejected. And what rejection does is it makes us feel like rejected, overlooked, not good enough. When I was in high school, here's my pom-pom story. I always wanted to be on the pom squad. And I kept thinking, okay, it's a brand new school. All we have are freshmen and sophomores. Like I said, it was new. There weren't that many girls trying out for the pom squad. But apparently I got a little cocky. I kind of thought, well, this is a piece of cake. Most people went home and actually, made a dance to, tryout dance. I decided not to do that. I decided that I would just kind of wing it and just start doing stuff. And, when the music went on, it went really bad and I did not make the pom squad. Rejection all year long. I'm not good enough. Look at them out there dancing. I can't do that. So next year, I'm like, I'm going to be prepared this year. I try again. All my friends now are the girls that are on the pom squad, and they're like, we don't even have a question. Like they've got 2 extra positions. You're going to make it, no problem. We were so sure of it that one of the other pom girls spent the night, and what they did is when you made the pom team, they would come and they would kind of like kidnap you in the middle of the night and take you out to eat and all that kind of stuff. We were so sure I was going to make it that she spent the night at my house, and we thought, you know what, we're just going to make this easy on them. They'll just come and pick Lori up and Lisa up and we're going to be good. The problem is I didn't make the squad. So here I am. They come to my house and they're like, knock, knock, knock. Sorry, but Lori made it. Lisa didn't. Okay, rejection all over again. And see, there's something about that. We feel like we're a failure, like we're not smart enough. We're not as good of a dancer. We're not spiritual enough. We're not talented enough. We don't have enough money, whatever it is. But when you are a follower of Jesus, nothing could be farther from the truth. For Barsabbas, I don't know how he felt. But this wasn't even like 12 teachers picking a pom dance squad. This is the God of the universe not picking you to be one of his 12 disciples. But what amazes me is that Barsabbas was perfectly fine with this. He didn't even take it personally. Christian tradition says that he died a martyr while he was out spreading the gospel. See, for him, when God said no, he didn't think like, oh, wow. He didn't go into therapy and go into counseling for rejection issues. He didn't walk away from his faith. He literally pressed forward. And I think there's a really good lesson in there for us. When we feel rejected, the world says, you're a failure, you're not good enough. But when God says no, it's not a matter of being good enough. It's a matter of where I need you. That's what God is saying. I don't need you to be one of the 12. I need you to go in a different direction. He's trying to explain, like, I have a different place for you. I have a better place for you. And somehow Barsabbas really understood that. Here's my picture of Amazon boxes. I think here's a big center, and all those boxes are going out into the world to different places. And I feel like that's how we all are. That's what God was doing with Barsabbas. He's saying, look, the 12 boxes are going to be here, but I need you to go someplace else. John 17:18 says this, just as you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. We have a purpose in this life to take the message of Jesus into the world, but there's different places where God needs us. And rejection doesn't mean failure. It just means God is moving you to a different place that he needs you. But what's really fascinating is when I look back on my high school years, I realized, I wonder if I would be doing this, teaching Bible today, if I had made the pom squad, like in my freshman or sophomore year. Because it was my freshman and sophomore year that I got involved with Campus Crusade for Christ. And God used those 2 years to grow my faith before I actually made the pom squad as a junior. But God used that rejection to do something good for me. I think about all the guest speakers that we've had all over all the years where, they had a choice. How could you let this happen to me? Why me? Poor me. And that wasn't true. Their prayers probably were like, God, help me to have a normal, happy picket fence life. But when that didn't happen, they could have felt like God was rejecting them. But instead, just like Barsabbas, They just said, you know what? We're just here to serve you. It doesn't really matter what's going on in my life. I think they just kind of felt like an Amazon box going to different parts of the world. For Carol Kent, her son killed someone, and she has a big prison ministry. God sent her into the prisons. Jennifer Rothschild, blind at 16, God needed to send her into the world to people that didn't feel like life was fair. She was the poster child for that. And she was like, this is okay. This is what God has given me in my life. Gracia Burnham, kidnapped missionary. When they're being rescued, her husband gets shot and killed. But God sent her into the world to tell us, you can make it through anything, anything. We see Saeed Abedini, 3.5 years in an Iranian prison. I'll never forget asking him, did you ever just want to walk away from your faith? And he's like, no, persecution strengthened my faith. And so he's telling that story. Kristen Taylor, deathly ill child. God sent them into the hospitals. They spend more time for the last probably, 15, 18 years in a hospital than outside. And they're sent out that way to tell people, you can suffer and still love and serve Jesus. Kristen Anderson, she was a suicide survivor. She lay down on the railroad tracks and was going to kill herself. And the train went over her body and cut off her legs. But she lived. And now God has sent her into the world to tell people there's hope. You don't need to kill yourself. Beth Nemo, she had a child who was murdered at Columbine. And her message is, you can get past the death of a loved one. See, when bad things happen to all of these people, they could have felt like God was rejecting them. Why can't I just be like everyone else and live a normal life? But instead, they took their box and their story and they took it out into the world, because those are the things that God can use. But it's our choice. Our choice is to take our rejection and move into a destructive behavior. Or we can take our rejection and allow God to use us. Our son Sean is a great example of this. Sean got married. They were pretty young. His wife wanted to be a doctor, so he stood by her and she became a doctor. But 10 years into the marriage, she decides, I don't want to be married to you anymore. I don't love you anymore. And you can imagine the pain and the rejection that he felt. I'm not good enough. I don't make enough money. I'm not as smart as you. Like whatever it was. And so you know what he did with his pain of rejection? Well, he did something that caused his parents extra gray hair, which means he became kind of like a prescription drug addict. And he was a mess. Finally, he talked with a pastor one day, and the pastor said, you are on a road, and you have a choice on this road, because the road is going to veer off. This one says you're going to die, and this one says you're going to help people. What are you going to do? And he went into detox, and he got clean. And since then, God has blessed him with 3 beautiful children, a beautiful wife, and he's involved in church now, and so many good things happen. The greatest part was one day church called him and asked if he would go help someone. And he was sitting there having coffee with somebody that was kind of like him many years before. And he was able to help him out of because he'd been there, he knew it. So when we're rejected in life, we can go one of 2 ways. We can be mad at God. We can be mad at God. We can be mad at the person who rejected us. We can let them ruin our life. Or we can be like Barsabbas and all of our guest speakers and believe that God is behind it all. He wants us to serve him with the stories that he's given us. Hope that helps you today. Have a good day.